From the 1300s to 1521, the Aztecs were the leading group in Mesoamerica. Even now, many things about the Aztecs remain a mystery. On one hand, they were known for being very smart, particularly in math and building things. On the other hand, they followed many gods who seemed always angry, and they often killed people in painful ways to please these gods. This is why we're going to talk in detail about the scary and shocking practices of what we call the Aztec death cults. To really get what the Aztecs believed, we need to look into their religion. Religion was a huge part of Aztec life. It touched everything they did, from how they saw the stars and nature, to their rules and leaders, to their everyday routines. And it even shaped who they thought they were. The Aztecs had a very different idea of religion and gods compared to what many believe today. Picture a world where gods weren't far away, but were actively involved in everything, like the sunrise, rain, and growing crops. The Aztecs saw their gods in the sky, the ground, and the water, feeling like they lived in a world filled with the gods' power. They thought that the sun god fought darkness every day. Every morning, the sun coming up was like a wind that they helped happen through their rituals and gifts. Their sacrifices were more than just acts of belief. They were seen as giving life energy to their god to keep the day and night going. This belief also showed up in how they organized their society and politics. Their leaders were seen as God's representatives on earth, similar to how some see the Pope in Christianity. They also had big parties for different gods with music, dancing, and food, making their entire lives a way to honor their gods. Knowing this, it's easier to understand that they also worship gods related to death. Now, let's talk more about a specific and very mysterious part of Aztec culture, the death cults. For most of us, death is a frightening idea because we don't know what comes next. But for the Aztecs, death wasn't the end. They saw it as an important part of life, a step into another kind of existence. Think of life and death as two sides of the same coin. While they saw life as a gift from the gods, death was a way to serve the gods in another form. This belief led to some practices that are very shocking to us today. So we'll explore these unique rituals and especially the role of ritual sacrifices. But before we discuss the shocking methods of sacrifice, we need to understand why they did it. From our view today, no religion encourages sacrificing people. It's difficult to say why exactly, especially since the Aztec civilization ended with the Spanish conquest in 1521. But from what we can understand, the main reason was to give back to their gods. They thought these sacrifices gave the gods the life energy, or tonali, they needed. In short, these sacrifices were seen as a necessary act, a way to keep the balance of life and make sure the sun could move across the sky each day. Human sacrifices in Aztec society weren't just about making the gods happy and keeping them strong. They had more reasons behind them. For example, these sacrifices showed how powerful the Aztecs were and scared other groups that might think about fighting them. The big ceremonies with lots of steps and care put into them would make anyone watching feel both amazed and scared. So what were these rituals like? How often did they happen? And how did they decide who would be sacrificed? Well, these rituals were part of many special religious events or big celebrations for the gods. One of their biggest feasts, they actually sacrificed dozens and hundreds of people. Who got picked to be sacrificed? Well, a lot of the times it was prisoners of war called Ixiptla, because killing them was seen as paying back a life to the gods. But sometimes they picked someone from their own community. Usually, this was someone who could represent the god they were honoring, living like that god until it was time for them to be sacrificed. The Aztecs had a specific way to do human sacrifices. It all started with the chosen person going up to the big grand Templo Mayor, a massive pyramid in the middle of Tenochtitlan, their capital. This person, led by a high-ranking priest, would climb the steps as people watched. The climb was symbolic, like moving from the normal world into the god's realm. At the top, the chosen one would lie down on a special stone set aside for this. Lying there, they might look up at the sky one last time, perhaps catching sight of eagles soaring above, birds that the Aztecs held in high regard. Then, the priest would bring out a special knife. Not just any knife, but one made from obsidian. This dark, glass-like stone from volcanoes can be made extremely sharp. The gleam of this sharp obsidian knife in the sunlight was a sign to everyone watching that the most critical moment of the ceremony was about to take place. In Aztec culture, a priest held a very important and powerful position. It was his duty to lead one of the most awe-inspiring parts of their ceremonies. Imagine this: a person would be lying on a stone table, and in a moment that made everyone watching hold their breath, the priest would take a sharp knife and carefully cut into the person's chest. This action would cause everyone around to go completely quiet, understanding the deep and serious nature of what was happening. With precise movements, the priest would reach into the chest and remove the heart, which incredibly would still be beating. In the hush that enveloped everyone, he would lift this heart towards the heavens. For the people of the Aztec civilization, this wasn't just a ritual. It was a profoundly sacred moment. They held the belief that the still beating heart was a very special offering to their gods, showing the utmost respect and commitment they had towards them. As the priest held the heart up high, the only thing breaking the quiet was the sound of drums playing, their rhythm matching that of the heart that was just offered, sending vibrations through the air. This event, though it might seem frightening, was deeply rooted in respect and illustrated the Aztecs' firm belief in the ongoing cycle of life and death and the connection between them. After this intense moment of offering the heart, the ceremony would move forward with great dignity and purpose. The person who had been offered in sacrifice, now without life, would be gently moved from the stone table. If the individual who had been sacrificed had been captured in battle, their body would then be handed over to the warrior who had captured them. This warrior would take the body away as part of his role in the ceremony. The Aztecs believed that the spirit of their sacrificed individual would stay with the warrior, acting as a guardian in their future fights or tasks. But not every time was the body handed over to a warrior. During certain festivals, they practiced cannibalism, where they consumed the flesh of the person sacrificed. This was another part of their rituals, reflecting their complex beliefs and traditions. In Aztec culture, after a person was sacrificed and their heart was offered to the gods, the next step involved the body of the sacrificed individual. This was not something taken lightly or done just anyhow. The body was carefully prepared because certain parts of it, specifically the flesh, were going to be eaten by some members of the society, like priests and warriors. Now, this might sound strange, but for the Aztecs, it was a deeply spiritual act. They believed that eating the flesh allowed them to form a connection with the divine, sort of like becoming one with the gods and absorbing the courage and strength of the person who had been sacrificed. Only certain people were allowed to partake in this, and it was done with a lot of thought and respect, not randomly or for fun. Imagine this: the people chosen to eat the flesh were seen as taking part in something very special. They weren't just eating food, they were partaking in a ritual that brought them closer to their gods and the spiritual world. This act of cannibalism, as shocking it might seem to us, was part of their religious ceremonies, carried out with chants, prayers, and other rituals. It was their way of showing devotion and commitment to their beliefs, a physical act of absorbing the qualities and the spirit of the sacrificed person into themselves. Now, it's important to understand that this practice wasn't an everyday thing. It was reserved for certain occasions and was part of their larger religious and spiritual life. The Aztecs had a profound respect for the cycle of life and death, and cannibalism during these rituals was seen as a way to honor that cycle and the gods. Beyond these rituals of sacrifice and cannibalism, the Aztecs also had elaborate customs for dealing with the dead in many ordinary circumstances. They believed that how one died played a crucial role in determining their path in the afterlife. Therefore, funerals and the rituals surrounding death were taken very seriously, designed to ensure that the deceased were properly honored and sent off to their next life according to their beliefs. These practices, too, were about maintaining the balance of the cosmic order and keeping the gods nourished and satisfied. To really understand the rituals and customs of the Aztecs, including their practices of cannibalism, we have to dig into history using the stories and observations recorded by the Spanish when they arrived in the Americas, and what we found buried in the ground. Hernán Cortés, a Spanish explorer, and his crew were among the first Europeans to see these ceremonies up close. They wrote down what they saw, giving us first-hand accounts of how the Aztecs carried out the religious sacrifices. Besides these written stories, we have ancient Aztec artworks called codices. These are like comic books, filled with detailed drawings that show us exactly how these rituals looked. Archaeologists, who are like detectives of history, have also discovered places where these ceremonies happened, finding altars and gifts to the gods that help us understand more about what the Aztecs believed and did. By putting all these pieces together, Cortés' observations, the pictures in the codices, and the archaeological finds, we start to see a clearer picture of the Aztec world, especially their spiritual and cultural traditions. As we wrap up our exploration of Aztec customs, including their jaw-dropping cannibalism rituals, we've left with a richer understanding of their complex religious beliefs and the way they lived their lives. These practices, which might seem really strange or even scary to us today, were a normal part of life for the Aztecs. It's important that we try to understand these practices within the context of their time and culture, without judging them by our modern standards. The Aztecs had a deep spiritual life and saw their sacrifices as a way to connect with their gods, offering them what they believed was the most precious gift, human life itself. By looking into the past, through the stories written by the Spanish, the ancient codices, and the clues left behind for archaeologists to find, we're able to peel back the layers of time and discover the vibrant, spiritual life of the Aztec people. This journey into history isn't just about satisfying our curiosity. It's about learning to appreciate the incredible diversity of ways that humans have found to express their deepest beliefs and values. By understanding the Aztecs' practices within their own cultural and religious framework, we get a glimpse into a completely different way of seeing the world, enriching our own understanding of human culture and spirituality across the ages. Is it fair to judge Aztec traditions by our own modern values? Let us know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.